So, as you all know, you have joined the webinar going through how we can bring a culture of life to our parishes through and with the celebration of the Sunday of Divine Mercy, which is the second Sunday of Easter. So just a couple notes on audio. Um, if you are having trouble hearing at any point, make sure your audio is connected. And if you are not sure how to do that, you can use the Q&A feature to message our host, Kyle Harrington, who is helping us with those types of logistics. For the directions for the Q&A, it depends on whether you're joining through the actual software, if you downloaded it, or through the web browser. It might look a little different. Many of you have already been using it just now, so hopefully that's not too new. And then to ask a question, we're going to be holding questions until the end, so we'll leave some time at the end for those. But feel free to enter your questions at any point throughout the presentation. So select all panelists so that everyone can see Mary, myself, and Kyle, so that depending on who is the best person suited to answer it, we'll all get a chance to do that. So select all panelists and then enter your question into the chat box or question box. And then with that, I'm going to turn it over to Mary to lead us in an opening prayer.
Great, thank you, Anne. All right, let us begin prayer as we always do, in the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. And I'll read this aloud, the prayer for trust in God's mercy. Gracious Father, I thank you for the mercy you have shown in forgiving my sins, and for the peace that comes from being reconciled with you and with your church. O God, you are faithful, and you never abandon those who hope in you. I know that my redemption from sin and death has been purchased at the cost of your Son's blood. In return for this priceless gift, I resolve today to renew my trust in your unfailing mercy. In times of doubt, when painful memories of past sins threaten to destroy the peace you have given, let the power of your Holy Spirit cast out all self-condemnation and give me greater confidence in your word of pardon. Teach me to encourage others so they too may seek your tender compassion and come to know your peace, which nothing can take away. I pray this in the name of Jesus, your Son, in whom you have restored me to life. Amen. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. And once again, thank you for joining us, and also for your dedication to life and to your interest and dedication to proclaiming God's great gift of life and mercy. And as you could probably see from the slide that we just prayed, that I just read the prayer from, it looked a little bit different from the other slides that were on the PowerPoint. And that's because the prayer, we took a screenshot from the website of the national website of Project Rachel Ministry, the website hopeafterabortion.org, specifically designed for those who are suffering after abortion so that they have information to offer help to them, and information available where they can find about the nearest Project Rachel ministry to them. But I'll get to that in just a minute, tell you more about that in just a minute. So how did we come to this point today here? And why are the staff of the Bishop's Pro-Life Office talking to you today about Divine Mercy Sunday? Well, as most of you probably know, way back in the 1930s, Jesus shared private revelations to a humble Polish nun, Sister Faustina, about himself, about his divine mercy itself, Jesus as his very nature as divine mercy. And in 2000, Pope St. John Paul II established this Feast of Mercy just days after canonizing St. Faustina. Pope Francis has built upon this legacy of mercy and wrote recently in 2016, mercy cannot become a mere parenthesis in the life of the Church. It constitutes her very existence. through which the profound truths of the gospel are made manifest and tangible. Everything is revealed in mercy. Everything is resolved in the merciful love of the Father. And I end quote. Our own current bishop's chairman of our Bishops Pro-Life Committee, Archbishop Joseph Naumann, talks about how mercy, the mercy towards those who have participated in abortion, is an essential part of our pro-life apostolate. And that's very key. So those are just some of the reasons we're here today talking about divine mercy. And we know that this message is not new, but this message of divine mercy is a powerful reminder of who God is and has been from the very beginning, that God is in his very nature, love and mercy itself. And this is knit into the very message of the church itself. And we who are called to proclaim the gospel of life also are called to proclaim this message of mercy. And we need this message now, today, more than ever before. So I did a little more reading about this, and I was reminded of the Marian Fathers write a lot about this divine mercy message, and they share the acronym that the message contains within it, ABC, which I found to be very helpful. A, ask for his mercy. So focusing first on our very own need for mercy. But B, be merciful. So our need to be merciful towards others. And C, completely trust in Jesus. So this message is particularly relevant in our time, in our nation, when our country has just commemorated 48 years of legalized abortion. And when, as statistics, the best rough estimate we can get is that 1 in 3 women has had an abortion by the age of 45, let alone the fathers of those aborted children, siblings, grandparents, all of those additionally impacted by the loss, sad loss of that child. And 23% of women who have had abortions self-identify as Catholic. So the need is very great for this message of healing after abortion in our church, in our pews, let alone the broader community. So the church's teaching on abortion as a sin is very well known, but sometimes, sadly, lesser known is our great compassion for those who have participated in abortion. So as we welcome this great message of divine mercy ourselves, hopefully we become more like Jesus. We become better proclaimers of mercy to others, and we're better able to be merciful towards those who have also sinned. And we're better able, like the friends who lifted the paralyzed man through the roof, lowering him to Christ in Mark's gospel, we're better able to bring our fellow sinners to a healing encounter with Christ. So the traumatic wound of abortion is unique. A woman participating in the death of her child, and it requires a particular response. So what is the church's response? Well, here's where I talk about Project Rachel Ministry, which is a diocesan ministry dedicated just to those who have participated in abortion and to sharing the message that God offers mercy and even indeed desires anyone's repentance who has participated in even the most serious sin, the sin of abortion. And as we know, the message of Jesus to St. Faustina was that the greater the sinner, the greater the right to Jesus's mercy. So since 1984, the bishops have led and developed Project Rachel Ministry. And these are some key components to Project Rachel Ministry. And I just want to share briefly, before we continue through the action guide and the materials, just some key components of Project Rachel Ministry. Christ's merciful love is always at the foundation. It is a diocesan ministry, always, with approval and oversight of the bishop and the involvement of diocesan priests. There's a confidential designated helpline answered by screened and trained staff and volunteers. And there's an integrated approach to healing. And what this means is that the spiritual and psychological suffering of abortion is addressed. And so both one-on-one and group healing opportunities are offered. And these can be many, depending on the diocese, but that includes one-on-one healing opportunity, of course, the sacrament of reconciliation with the priest, but also group healing opportunities like retreats. And one of the questions we often get is, what's the difference between Rachel's Vineyard and Project Rachel? Well, this is where a retreat comes in. If a diocese is able to offer a retreat, Rachel's Vineyard is one of the models of retreats that are out there that a diocese may choose to use as their retreat model. Some dioceses decide to develop their own retreat model. Um, a diocesan Project Rachel ministry may offer referrals to mental health professionals or offer support groups. And I'm sharing all of this about Project Rachel ministry because, as you can see, it's a specialized ministry and it's integrated into the life of the church. It is a church ministry. It is the diocese. And so there's a lot to coordinate at the diocesan level and a lot going on. So it's always good to know the contact information for the ministry and who is the diocesan Project Rachel coordinator. So that information can be found simply by calling the Respect Life or Project Rachel Ministry office. You can also check on hopeafterabortion.org. For most dioceses, their information is listed there. All dioceses with a confidential designated helpline are listed on that website on the Find Help map. And just make sure that if you are giving, we're going to be referencing a lot of promotional materials for Divine Mercy and, and for Project Rachel. And it's just very good to always make sure that you have the most up-to-date contact information, phone number and email address for Project Rachel Ministry. And just to make sure that it's up to date. Be aware of where you can send people for help and how you can help the diocesan ministry spread awareness and do outreach through flyers or bulletin ads. Just to make sure that everyone's on the same page, to be aware of any opportunity to possibly promote the local contact ministry. And the more you collaborate with the diocesan offices, the better. Not that we want to discourage you from moving forward with a parish event, or you need special permission to do a parish event, but it's still good to let them know what you're doing and vice versa. So I think now that I've gone over Project Rachel Ministry, I'm going to turn it over to Anne to start going through the materials.
Okay, thanks, Mary, for that wonderful introduction and giving all that context. So to begin with, just to give you an overview, we have the purpose of these action guides overall is so that anyone in the parish, especially for parishes who don't have Respect Life, let me rewind. So this is so that parishioners, lay Catholics, can bring a culture of life and the gospel of life, integrating it into the rhythm and life of the parish. We recognize that it can be difficult now more than ever with COVID for people to gather together for a specific pro-life event, so to speak. And so our goal is to help you meet people where they are. And one of those places is in Mass. And so whether you're a Respect Life coordinator for your parish, whether you are, just wanting to dip your toe into the water of helping your parish to celebrate the gospel of life, there's something here for you. And we don't expect everyone to do all of these action guides. If you want to, that's obviously wonderful. But don't feel that burden or obligation or the heaviness. This is really just meant to be tools for you to aid you on any scale, whether it's doing a full action guide and going all in, or just pulling out one announcement from the guide and asking that that be included in your bulletin. It's really just meant to be adaptable, and it can also be used in a variety of other settings. Most of this can be adapted for use in settings like the classroom, in Catholic education, or maybe faith formation, or religious education, or parish ministry small groups. So So this is really meant to be a jumping off point for you to get the ideas, get the tools to get started, and then to customize it as you need to. So we have 6 action guides for January. Some of you may have attended that. We went through how, different options for observing the anniversary of Roe v. Wade, the Day of Prayer for the Legal Protection of Unborn Children. The last webinar we did a couple of weeks ago was for the Annunciation of the Lord on March 25th. That's also the anniversary of John Paul II's encyclical Evangelium Vitae, or the Gospel of Life. If you go to the website at the bottom of this slide, respectlife.org/action guides, this is where we're housing everything and parking everything. So even if you missed previous webinars, please feel free to go back. The recordings, for January and March are posted on that page. And this webinar recording will also be posted there within a few business days. We are in the process of making the last 3 action guides for Mother's Day, Father's Day, and Respect Life Month perennial. We initially developed these in 2019, and so this year we're going through and removing specific dates, whereas before the timeline might have said, on August 1st, 2019 do this, and now we're suggesting, okay, 3 months ahead of XYZ, so that they can be used, year in and year out. And maybe one year you do something that you do one piece of it, and another year you do another piece of it. So our hope is that these will help you in that way. So moving on, each action guide has these components, these 7 components. So there's an introduction, which kind of gives the context, the layout, what the connection is between Respect for Life and that specific occasion. There is, and I'll go through all of these in a little bit more depth. There's a section called Simple Steps, and that is meant to be sort of a summary of a shorter, simpler way of doing the action guide that is then expanded in the sample timeline. So if you aren't wanting to do the whole sample timeline, maybe you pick one or more of the simple steps that are laid out. The sample timeline goes into much more detail, much more depth, suggests a plan of action and when to do certain steps. The bulletin and pulpit announcements are written for you with specific notes in red of where you would need to customize information, like the date, time, contact information. There are sample intercessions. Homily helps. Mary's going to talk to you a little bit more about those. And the sample activity. So to get started, we'll now move to the simple steps. So the 5 main things we have here, they'll vary a little bit from guide to guide, but all the components remain the same for each one. So number 1 here is share the message of mercy with those suffering after abortion. And so as Mary talked about, many dioceses do offer help for those who are suffering after participation in abortion. And I just want to re-emphasize the importance of connecting with your diocesan director for Respect Life Ministry, or perhaps if your diocese has Project Rachel, the director for that, so that you can make sure that you're sending people to the most up-to-date, current, accurate information that the diocese offers. And then if they give you information and permission, we suggest that you could hang copies of the flyer, also seeking the permission of your pastor and your parish staff and whomever you would normally ask permission from. So while we provide you with tools to equip you so that you can take action, we also wholeheartedly emphasize the importance of following the structures and regular permissions and approvals that you would typically go through for doing something in your parish. But anyway, one specific suggestion that I want to note is that if you are given a flyer specifically a flyer with pull-off tabs, you could pull off 2 or 3 of those and then hang them up, in discrete locations, perhaps in, women's or men's restrooms. And like perhaps in this, I've seen them on the backs of the stall door. And then that gives people maybe a little bit more of their own comfortability to also take off a tab for themselves to follow up on later. And then the second simple step is to highlight the Sunday of Divine Mercy specifically. And one of the ways you can do this is our Lord, according to the private revelations given to St. Faustina, which are recorded in her diary, he requested that a novena be done from Good Friday through leading up to Easter, leading up to the Sunday of Divine Mercy. And so we provide a link to where you can find that novena. And so one way you can do that, we also provide announcements for putting in your bulletin or perhaps sending in your newsletter to where people can also find the novena and then, pray that. And then each day of the novena gives a specific intention that our Lord gave to St. Faustina according to those revelations. So the third simple step is to preach on God's unending mercy on the Sunday of Divine Mercy. And we have both a set of homily suggestions, which I will go into a little bit more later, and Mary is also going to speak with you about. And there are also, she's going to speak to you more about the general homily considerations regarding healing after abortion, which can be used in conjunction with the homily notes. The fourth simple step, as you can see, is pray for healing during the prayer of the faithful. So we provide you with sample intercessions that you could submit to your parish to be included. You could use, I think there's about 5 or 6. You could use all of them. You could use one of them. You could, spread them out throughout the month. I'll just give a plug here for our monthly Word of Life publication. You can find that on respectlife.org under the prayer tab. And every month you can actually sign up to, you can subscribe to receive it in your inbox. And every month we send out sample intercessions, one for each weekend of the month. And then we also have bulletin quotes, some, artistic graphics, and also a special feature section of what's coming up for that given month. So we do include the intercession specifically for the Sunday of Divine Mercy, but then the Word of Life is a monthly resource that goes out throughout the year. And then fifth, we suggest, following all the permissions needed with your parish, with your diocese if needed, to offer a prayer service for forgiveness and healing. And then you can promote that to the parishioners through, again, the sample bulletin and pulpit announcements, which I'll show you a little bit later on. And there are specific, this is actually the sample activity component at the end of the action guide, so you'll see that there too. So then going on to the parish action guide, the sample timeline. So the main steps of the Divine Mercy timeline are to connect with your pastor and parish staff. That's basically the first step in all of the timelines that we offer for the various action guides. And then after that is where it starts to get a little bit more customized to Divine Mercy Sunday. So we recommend after you connect with your parish and your pastor with the staff, find out about the timelines that they need to receive bulletin submissions or intentions for prayers for the prayer of the faithful. After you connect with them, then and if you do get permission to do a prayer service for forgiveness and healing or some other type of event, maybe a holy hour, we also offer, and I'll show you later where you can find it, but we offer a template for a holy hour for the Sunday of Divine Mercy. So if you're doing one of those, then you would go ahead and recruit volunteers to help you with the details of those. Maybe you need someone to focus on the bulletin submissions. Maybe you want someone to focus specifically on getting out the word to the various groups in your parish. If, for example, you use Flocknote, that's a parish messaging program that's online based. Then you could, send messages to, the pro-life group in your parish, to maybe the prayer group in your parish or prayer groups. And then also recognizing that prayer is the foundation of everything we do as Catholics. We also would recommend, especially for this topic of healing, it really is good to do with, I think, any topic, but we highlight it specifically in this action guide because of the importance of just seeking grace for everyone who is involved in ministering to those who have participated or suffered from participation in abortion, and for those themselves who are suffering. So we recommend reaching out and asking, different prayer networks that you might know of. Is there a local convent or friary or monastery? Are there prayer groups within your parish that you can ask to pray for your efforts, specifically surrounding the Sunday of Divine Mercy? After that, you're going to want to complete the bulletin submissions following whatever deadlines were given to you by your parish. And then you'll want to reconnect with your parish, with your pastor and your parish staff. Tie up any loose ends. Make sure that everyone has what they need. If you've told your pastor that you can provide him with the homily notes, then make sure that you send those to him. Maybe he wants them as a print copy and he would prefer that. Just see what they need and just make sure that you are as helpful as possible. We've heard repeatedly in our work that oftentimes a pastor would welcome something to be done in terms of Respect Life ministry, but it's much easier for that to happen if help is offered, and especially help that is I think with anything as lay Catholics, well, actually not even just lay, but just in general as Catholics, we need to remember ourselves, and this is something that Mary and I talk about in our own work, of approaching our work and certainly anything within the parish with a spirit of humility and openness, and you can certainly make requests, but in our work, it's at the end of the day, it's our boss's decision, and it's where does the Lord want us to go with something? So just to remember that we're there to serve. And then again, so following along with that, you'll want to, if you get the permission needed, then after all of the other stuff is done, you'll want to go ahead and hang your flyers. You could hang flyers, for abortion healing ministry that were given to you by the diocese, and or flyers, advertising whatever event it is that you want to host. Okay, so then moving on to the announcements, we've kind of already covered most of them, but just to reiterate, we've got announcements both for your bulletin and for the pulpit. They're worded slightly differently, and we have 3 different things we're covering in these announcements. We have a set for the Divine Mercy Novena. We have a set for the Sunday of Divine Mercy, and we have just kind of raising awareness of that, and then that's an opportunity to where you could include the information for your local ministry. And then again, I can't say it enough, we want to make sure that you connect with your diocese to find out what the best information is to provide there. And then we have announcements for the prayer service for forgiveness and healing. We suggest dates that you could use them, but again, you're certainly not limited to those. If you want to run the announcements several weekends ahead of time, that's great. And then we also, as I said, we have multiple links offered. And then as you can see here on this next page, the pulpit announcements and the intercessions share the same page in the action guide, but you can see that the pulpit announcements are much shorter to try to meet those kinds of parameters. I'm just going to take a quick sip of water. So then going back to the intercessions, um, you can see we have several offered here. And in addition to the prayer of the faithful, you might consider including one or more of them in the bulletin the weekend of Divine Mercy Sunday, or in other parish communications, that are regularly sent out. Maybe include one if there's a little space in the corner somewhere. So again, just be creative, be adaptable, use these as you can to fit the needs of your specific circumstances. And a lot of these are able to be adapted even during COVID. We still, I know a lot of parishes have, been live streaming events. In January, we had about 50 dioceses um, listed on our website who were hosting some type of like a prayer event, like a mass or a holy hour or a rosary or just a reflection as part of our 9 days for life novena. And then, so, a lot of them were hybrid events where they had were able to have some in-person attendance and then also the live stream. And so, even though there are restrictions in a lot of areas of the country, a lot of these still can be used in your digital communications, whether that's the newsletter, if you do digital bulletins, if your pastor wants to include them, mention something in the homily or after mass in the announcements. There are still ways that we can promote the gospel of life, even now. And if anybody has any specific ideas that I haven't mentioned, we'd love to hear them so that we can possibly share them in the future. And if you do have ideas, please email us at prolife, all one word, PROLIFE, at USCCB.org. And if you use any of these materials, we also would love to hear about it, because we want to serve you and to be as helpful as we possibly can. So if you find that these materials are helpful and you're able to just drop us a line and let us know that you used them, that would be really helpful for us to know that we're headed in the right direction and providing things that are useful. If there's something that's missing that would have been helpful to use, let us know. If you find that none of these are helpful, let us know. Either way, we really do rely on feedback from you all to be able to know how to continue forward in providing materials that aid you in your efforts. So then with the homily helps, what we've done is we've provided a set that your pastor can use all together as one whole homily. A lot of pastors prefer to be more individual and customized with what they say. And so maybe he just wants to include one point from these homily notes. Again, however they're helpful is our goal. So if he doesn't want to use them at all, then that's totally fine too. They're here to be of service. And then you can see on the left that we've included the readings for all 3 liturgical years cycles, so year A, year B, and year C, so that these can continue to be a resource to you as time goes on. And I'm going to ask Mary to jump in here for a moment to talk about one other homily resource we have, which is called Homily Considerations Regarding Healing After Abortion. So I'm going to pause there and just let Mary jump in.
Yeah, thanks, Anne. So I just wanted to give a little bit of context for this resource here, Homily Considerations Regarding Healing After Abortion. So these were developed for Project Rachel Ministry directors, their team members. In a diocese, usually there are priests and lay people that work as a team along with the director of the ministry coordinating. It's developed obviously for priests and deacons who will be giving homilies, and it developed to give to priests to whom people have a relationship with. And as I read through this again to remind me of all the great information that's in it, and it struck me that this is also, the information in here is so helpful, and it can be applied to those of us who give presentations on abortion, on pro-life issues, or even in one-on-one conversation. So I really encourage you to prayerfully read over it and reflect and think about your own communications and your own discussions about abortion and mercy and healing, and just to think about how you might integrate some of it in your own speech. So as we consider this resource, remember our ABCs and what Anne mentioned, ABCs of spreading the message of divine mercy, and what Anne mentioned earlier about embracing humility. So this resource is meant to be shared for those who are not, part of the Project Rachel team, working directly with priests. It's meant to be shared with those who are open to receiving them and have expressed interest. So as we know, nobody likes to be told how to do their job. So we want to be sure that we're offering Father this resource in a spirit of generosity and humility. Plenty of people have opinions on, how priests should preach or shouldn't preach on abortion. So we just want to be, that humble spirit if we're sharing this resource or offering it to Father. And we know a priest stands from the pulpit and reminds the congregation to come to him or the other priests in the parish to forgive their sins in persona Christi, in the person of Christ, in confession. But also remember that deacons also give homilies. So if you have a relationship with your deacon and he seems interested, he might also be open to this resource as well. So just some good, important things to keep in mind as you consider this, sharing this resource with others. That's it. Thanks, Anne.
All right. Thanks so much, Mary. Okay, so we're almost done, and then we'll have some time for Q&A. So just to finish up with the last component of the action guide, it's the sample activity. And the sample activity is the prayer service for forgiveness and healing that I mentioned earlier. Each activity in each of the action guides tells you, what it is, the materials that you'll need, and then some, possible directions that you could follow if they're helpful to you. So for example, in the prayer service, the directions are, contact your pastor, as we've talked about. After it's been approved, begin advertising, some ideas for how to do that, recruiting volunteers, other things that I, didn't mention earlier, but that you might want, be lectors, musicians, that kind of thing. If you are doing physical copies of the program, or maybe you have a screen that you use in your parish, in your church, to put, together the song lyrics that you'll be using. Before the event begins, make sure you take some time to pray, just for again, the Lord to just bless and pour his grace out upon the event and upon those, who are responsible for facilitating it, as well as, those who are attending. And then, consider making promotional materials available for your local abortion healing ministry. Again, whatever the diocese, gives you permission and approves for use. And then one step further, you could consider, as I mentioned, we have, or I don't know if I want to say further or, perhaps instead of, we do have that Eucharistic Holy Hour for the Sunday of Divine Mercy template. And I'll show you where you can find that. So moving on, where can you find the action guide? So this is your best friend link, respectlife.org/action-guides. At the top of the page, you'll see this little hyperlink here, learn more in our FAQ on that first arrow. And that's where it gives it's a written out description of what the action guides are, who they're for, how they're supposed to be used. I think we've kind of covered most of that in this webinar, but it could be helpful if you want to refresh yourself or send it to someone else. And then there are 6 buttons at the top, as you can see here: Anniversary of Roe v. Wade, Solemnity of the Annunciation, and then the Sunday of Divine Mercy. And then you can't see them, but the others are there as well. So you'll click on those buttons to go down to the one that you want to see, or you could use this menu off to the right-hand side where all the bullets are. So click on Sunday of Divine Mercy, and then you'll be taken to this part of that page. This is all on the same page. And there's a description of what it is and why we're celebrating it, what the connection is to Respect Life issues and topics. And then there are There's the link for the action guide itself, available in both English and Spanish. The I just want to make sure I have something. Yeah, just checking my notes here to see what I have upcoming. Okay, yep. So I'll wait a second on one of the things I was going to say. And then where it says webinar registration is where we'll change that once the recording is available, again, within the next few business days, to say, webinar recording, and then it'll just live there, and that's where you can access it from in the future. And then below those two things, we have a list of supplementary resources. So the links to the Divine Mercy Novena, the homily considerations that Mary just talked about. And then the one I want to point out in particular is the Eucharistic Holy Hour for Divine Mercy Sunday. On that page, that's where you can find the template. And also some other, notes and quotes for reflection about the Sunday of Divine Mercy, and a little bit of background and historical information as well. So all of that can be accessed through that link to the Eucharistic Holy Hour for Divine Mercy under the Supplementary Resources heading. And then if you click, actually, let me go back real quick. So if you click the button that says, under the action guide, if you click the button that says English, you will be taken to this page, which is part of our resource library on USCCB.org. And we have the full action guide as a Word document, in case that's easier to cut and paste into your bulletin or newsletters or something like that. We also have it as a PDF, which is, the pages that you've just seen as screen captures as we've been talking. And then each component is also its own PDF broken down into individual documents to make those easier to share as well. In case, for example, if you want to share the homily helps with your pastor, he doesn't need to see the whole action guide. That might be more than it might be a little overwhelming. So you can just send him that one document, which is just 2 pages. So with that, we're going to now turn to the Q&A part of our session. And again, just to remind you, find that little Q&A icon either in the center of your screen through the small button with the ellipses, the vertical ellipses, click that, and then it'll say Q&A, or depending on how you're viewing this webinar, you can click in the lower right corner. And please select all panelists, type your question, and then hit enter. And then actually, just as a reminder before we get to the Q&A, just as far as next steps, just to wrap everything up and tie it all together, go ahead and go to respectlife.org/action-guides, review the resources that are available there. The Spanish Word document is available right now, and then within the next few days, we'll be able to, I would say by Monday at the latest, we'll be able to have those, nicely laid out files in Spanish as we do with the English. But the Word document is at least online. So review the available resources, decide what you would like to ask permission to implement, connect with your pastor and parish staff and your diocesan director as needed. And we do have, if you go, we'll include this in our follow-up email, but we do have a page on our website where you can find who your diocesan director is. It's basically a directory by state. And then with the contact information, at least for their website, if not more. Actually, I think it is just website. Okay, so back to, I'm gonna stop sharing this, and we'll get into some Q&A here. All right, so.
Well, and to give you a little bit of a break,
Thanks. Yeah,
I can start.
All right.
Yeah, you've been talking for a while, so feel free, browse through those questions. We tried to answer some for you because you got a lot. So one question that I'll take was, someone asked where I got my statistics from. The percentage of women who identify as who have abortions, who self-identify as Catholic, and the 1 in 3. And that's sadly, Um, you know, as much as the pro-abortion industry talks about abortion as healthcare and all of that, there is no mandatory reporting of abortion. There's no federal, I should say, mandatory reporting. Some states, I think some states require abortion providers to report. California does not. California is a state where a lot of abortions happen. New York, I think, I'm not sure of the law in New York. I'm not the expert on the laws there. Um, but so, all that said, we don't have exact numbers, sadly. Um, so the numbers come from Guttmacher Institute, which started as the Research Institute of Planned Parenthood, research arm of Planned Parenthood. So they've apparently broken off, you know, to the degree that means anything. So these are very rough numbers, as I tried to emphasize when I explained these statistics. So these numbers are based on Guttmacher. In some cases, the CDC has numbers. So we come up with these figures based on a lot of different sources. So the 1 in 3, I believe that is, excuse me, the 23%, that is based on a survey from the Guttmacher Institute themselves. They survey their providers and ask how women self-identify, what religion, what faith they identify as. So I hope that answers your question. Anne, you have any that you see you want to answer? I'll take a look now.
Sorry, I am still going through them. I was scrolling, trying to start from the top and then still going through where everyone's from. So I'm just
Right.
going down the list here. Um,
Lisa, if you didn't see it, Lisa Everett from Fort Wayne South Bend was kind enough to share. Someone asked about miscarriage ministry resources, and make sure if you're interested in that, that you find the URL that she shared. Diocese of Fort Wayne South Bend has a lot of great material that Lisa is the Family Life Respect Life coordinator in that diocese there, and she shared the URL, and that should be helpful to all those who are looking for miscarriage ministry resources. And in a lot of dioceses, the Family Life Office um, handles miscarriage ministry. Elizabeth Ministries is also a good resource. Um, there are a lot of this is a growing need, a growing awareness about addressing the pain and loss of miscarriage, which is a really good thing, to identify that loss and to minister to those suffering from it.
okay, somebody is asking, can the action guides be provided in a zip file via email? We do just I'd say once we finish making them all evergreen, we could put them all into one file that's downloadable online. Um, but just due to the volume of emails that we get, I don't see that as something that we would necessarily be emailing out in the future. We really just try to put everything online
Oh,
just to make it accessible to as many people as possible.
okay. I see the comment about they can't see the URL for the miscarriage ministries. Let me go back in and make sure that I actually, Kyle, would you do that? Would you go find that URL and share that publicly in the Q&A so people could see that? And then I also want to verbally, I answered this question privately, but I want to vocalize it. Someone asked about a deliverance prayer for Project Rachel Ministry, and if Project Rachel uses deliverance prayers specifically from Unbound Ministry. So again, to clarify that so our office here at the national level serves the bishops and the dioceses, and we offer formation, guidance, and resources. But the Project Rachel Ministry is really diocesan based. So each diocese is going to be deciding things like which prayers they use in their ministry at that level. So we provide the overall vision, and we provide resources to dioceses. But certainly if a diocese wants to use prayers that they feel are suitable for their unique situation in the diocese, that meet the needs of the people that are coming to their Project Rachel ministry, they are certainly welcome to use those prayers of deliverance.
I just want to answer a question from someone who says, would it be too late to try to do the Annunciation or just aim for Divine Mercy? I would say go ahead and go to the Action Guides website, respectlife.org/action guides or /action-guides, and just take a look at the information that we have available. What you think might be possible. Maybe you do something simple like asking for a prayer to be included in the prayer of the faithful, or to let the priest know that, like, hey, if you haven't thought about it, here are some homily helps that you could maybe consider using. I would say the earlier you can start on something, the better. So maybe focus more of your attention on Divine Mercy, but certainly go ahead and take a look and see, if there's something quick and simple that you want to do. Somebody else asked whether there are also resources on how to reach out to young people who are not attending Mass. We specifically don't have that in the pro-life office, but I would recommend that you visit the USCCB.org website and look for the Secretariat for Laity, Marriage, Family Life, and Youth, or even just Google USCCB plus Secretariat for Marriage, Laity, Marriage, Family Life, and Youth, and see what resources they have. Because we have a coordinator specifically for youth and young adult ministries who would know more about that. Okay, sorry, just looking through these other questions. I'm so sorry, we will not be able to get to all of them. Somebody is asking about printed materials. Will the bishops let us give out any written material for Divine Mercy Sunday? That's really up to your local diocese. It's not something that is direction coming specifically from the USCCB as a mandate. That would be up to your local diocese. So the best thing would be to contact your local diocesan Respect Life director to ask them about that. I mentioned, yes, we have a number of newsletters and emails that you can join. If you go to usccb.org/pro-life, all one word, and then in the upper right corner of the page, or maybe it's the mid right of the page, I'm sorry, I can't quite remember at the moment, but somewhere on the page it says subscribe, and then it'll take you to a list of all our communications.
Someone is asking for, again, the ABCs. Ask for mercy. A. B was be merciful. And then C, completely trust in Jesus. So thanks for that question. I thought it's a nice little acronym.
Sorry, there's so many questions I'm trying to scroll through.
Great questions and
Yeah.
great. If your question, I think Anne already said this, but if your question didn't get answered, email prolife, PROLIFE at usccb.org, and we'll follow up with you. And Kyle, thank you, Kyle. Kyle entered in the URL for the pro-life offices by state. And I'm still looking for the miscarriage ministry link.
Yeah, I think
Was
what we
that
can do.
sent? Oh, there it is. Okay. Yep, Ava's Grace.
Yeah, and what we'll do is, I'm sorry,
I think it's, sorry, no, I think it's misspelled. I think it's missing the O before the F. So let me see if I can find it. Go ahead, Anne. I know we're almost out of time here, so
Yeah, and I was
um,
just going to say, I know we mentioned a lot of links. And so when we send the follow-up email with the recording to everyone who registered, um, even if, people were not able to attend, they'll still get it if they registered. We'll also include a list of the links that we referenced during this webinar. But specifically one that somebody had a question about that I noticed is asking where the Holy Hour for Divine Mercy can be found. If you go to the Action Guides page, down to the Divine Mercy Sunday section, under the subheading Supplementary Resources, that's where you can find that link. So all of the links listed in the Action Guide are and the action guide themselves and the webinar, everything is all in one place on that respectlife.org/action-guides.
and I apologize, Kyle. The URL is correct. There's no diocese of. It's just diocesefortwaynesouthbend.org/avas-grace. So, yep, the URL is in there. Great.
I think that's
This
our
has been so wonderful. Yeah, it's been such a pleasure to be with all of you. And thank you so much for all the dedication and dedicated work you do in spreading the gospel of life. So thank you.
Yes, thank you so much. Again, feel always free to hit us up at prolife@usccb.org. If you have any feedback or questions, there is going to be a short survey at the end when you close out. And so if you would take just a moment to fill that out, we would be so grateful because it really does help us help others in the future more effectively. Okay, thank you all. God bless.